a few incidents to get through, and it's all around that one game, so we'll get right into it. Now, in the 29th minute of the first half, Trey Mooney, there was a high tackle on Connolly Lemuelu. It was reviewed by the bunker and it was assessed as minimal force and therefore not reportable. So I just want to make a point about this before we look at a number of these high tackles, that the season before last we made a change to what the bunker can intervene on in general play and what they can't, and specifically around foul play. And a couple of seasons ago we saw a very disturbing trend of players staying on the ground in the hope of receiving a penalty after the bunker reviewed tackles. And if there was any kind of minor contact with the head, the bunker would see that in a review and the team would receive a penalty for head contact. Now, many of those incidents were minor. They didn't go on to be reportable or sin binnable, or even a player being sent off. So they were at the lower end of the scale. But more importantly, while we don't ever want to see any contact with the head, it does happen from time to time at a relatively low level, and we certainly don't want to encourage players to stay down hoping to get a penalty. So that was changed, and the change that was introduced last year was that the contact had to be assessed by the bunker to be at least of reportable standard. So if it wasn't, in their view, and using their judgment, if it wasn't considered to be a reportable incident, then the bunker would stay out, and of course the player would ultimately get up and play the ball if they were down receiving treatment. So that's been in place for some time now. So let's have a look at this Trey Mooney high tackle. There's a couple of things to point out. Now this was, as I said, the bunker assessed it as minimal force, not reportable. The match review committee, which is a separate process, which we talk about all the time, they did consider it to be more than that, and there was a grade 1 charge that was laid for this incident. So let's have a look at it. You see there's a drop ball there, and Mooney comes in over the top. So all happens quite quickly, but we'll have a look at it a little more slowly. So we'll go through in slow motion. So drop ball, and there's the head contact with the head. Now, an important, or one factor to look at here, which the bunker no doubt looked at as they reviewed this, was that you'll see that as Mooney moves his arm forward, he actually hits his own leg. Just there, you can see his thigh vibrate there from the contact with his arm into his own thigh, which then comes forward and there's no question makes contact with the head. And as I said, there are many instances where where there is head contact, although we discourage it as much as possible. Now there's also some mitigating factors about bending over, trying to pick the ball up, but head contact nonetheless. So that's where the bunker reached a view that it was minimal force, as the final contact was minimal force, didn't reach the bar in their view for a reportable incident. Then we have one of the reasons why we have multiple stages in our review process is that the match review committee get the opportunity to look at these things, to assess them, whether players could have changed their action to avoid contact, and in the view of the match review committee they decided that was a grade 1 charge. So in hindsight, the match officials probably should have acted on this one. I think it probably would have resulted in a penalty and being placed on report rather than any stronger action. I don't think it would have resulted in a sin bin, but certainly a penalty and placed on report would have probably been a better outcome in this particular case. But again, it's the judgment of the bunker in the moment as against the judgment of the match review committee in their process that they go through in a committee environment after the game with plenty of time to look at these things. So that's incident number 1. Now the one that also created a fair amount of comment was in the 35th minute, obviously very late in the game in the second half, and this is where Joe Tarpen effected a high tackle on Herbie Farnworth. Herbie Farnworth was also injured and stayed on the ground. The bunker review and also similarly assessed that the force was minimal, that it was not a reportable incident in their view, so they stayed out of it. And the match review committee in this case agreed with that assessment, and there was no charge laid in relation to this incident. So we'll have a look at this one. So again, you don't see much from that angle. A few other angles, you can see that the arm comes around the side from behind. And again, in normal speed, very hard to pick some of these things up, which is what the referees are looking at. The bunker does get the opportunity, obviously, to look at a couple of replays. So we'll go back and look at again a couple of these in slower motion. So comes around over the top of his own player. As you can see again, there is definitely some contact with the neck, perhaps the lower part of the face as that arm swings around. Go to the next angle. So again, there's no question that there's contact. What it comes down to is level of force assessed by the bunker. In this case, minimal force, they believe, not a reportable incident. That's why there was no intervention by the bunker, and there was no charge by the match review committee. Now, it doesn't all go, against one team, or these decisions don't always impact one team, because I won't show you the incident, but there was another incident in the 49th minute of the game where a tackle by Anthony Milford on Ethan Strange took place. Again, there was no penalty on the field. The incident was placed on report in the background after the bunker had a chance to review the tackle, and that ultimately finished up a grade 1 charge by the match review committee. So there was no penalty awarded to the Raiders in that incident. So similarly to the two that we've just looked at where the bunker decided to stay out of it, in this particular case the bunker picked up the contact with Milford, but it was too late to actually take any on-field action, but it was considered by the match review committee to be worthy of a charge, and it was a grade 1 charge. So they're the three tackles in the game that I guess involved some degree of high contact and that have created some degree of discussion about what action should or should not have been in place in these particular incidents. Again, people will always make up their own mind on these things, whether it's minimal force, whether it's more than that, whether it should have been a penalty, whether it should have been placed on report, whether a player should have been charged. But these are all the decisions that have to be made during the game, initially by the match officials and also by the match review committee after the game.